Hi, and welcome to the Snelling Forging the Future podcast. I'm here with the Director of Quality Engineering at Scientia Vascular, Jacob Braithwaite. Jacob, thanks so much for joining the call today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump right into it. Jacob, for those who don't know Scientia, can you tell us a bit about what the company does and your role there?
Yeah. So Scientia started as a vascular access company specifically. So we make medical devices. We make specifically tools to help get into the brain, primarily to deal with strokes or aneurysms, basically anything you need to do inside of the brain. The goal is to be able to get to it specifically. So we started out with guide wires. We now have a couple of catheters as well. So we're kind of working our way closer and closer to this specific treatment side instead of just the access side. But really, it's getting in, helping people when they're having issues that are happening in their brain, making sure that a clinician can get to where they need to get to. My role here specifically is on the quality side. Like you mentioned, I specifically oversee quality for the kind of manufacturing operations side of things. So my team supports all sorts of stuff from kind of non-conformances to corrective and preventative actions, incoming supplier, basically all the things that have to do with the product itself and getting pieces of it in the door and then getting the actual product out.
Yeah, awesome. I understand that there's been a lot of growth the last few years. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that journey's been like for you?
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, I started out as one of basically two quality engineers here, and my responsibilities at the time were kind of everything on the new product development side, as well as the manufacturing side. And as the company has grown, my responsibilities have kind of grown and changed with the company as well. So I have moved into specifically that manufacturing operations side, but it's been interesting to see kind of the growth as it's happened and what that's meant for me. So I went from being able to touch on everything to having to be a little bit more focused.
Scientia has grown the last few years.
Yeah. So I kind of have had the opportunity to grow along with it significantly and everything. One of the things that was kind of fun for me coming into the company when I did was that I had an understanding of kind of what the goals were for growth and everything. That the expectation was that it wasn't going to stay the size that it was, that we were going to grow significantly. So one of the goals that I had as coming into the company when I did and everything was to try to keep our systems and everything ahead of where we need. And I've had some success with that and learned a lot from it for sure and everything, but it was fun to kind of come into it with this specific goal in mind and then be able to kind of assess myself at this point about how well has that been going so far. And obviously it's not all on me to make sure that piece of things works and whatnot, but it is just kind of a fun kind of time point to say, hey, this was kind of a specific goal that I had coming into this. And as the company has shifted and grown significantly, how am I doing against kind of?
Yeah. What do you think has driven that success with all this growth? And is it that metric that you're, holding yourself against, or are there other like things that you specifically do that you see helping you through that crazy growth?
And success of the company in general doesn't feel right to think about it in terms of me. It feels like it's a company-wide thing and everything. And so when I think about what has really caused Scientia to be successful, I think it has really been kind of people and a vision. I think that the company has had a really strong vision from the start about wanting to support physicians, wanting to make procedures easier and basically make patient outcomes better. That's been a real goal for the company as a whole and everything. And then I think that the people who are coming in to work here are people who that vision resonates with, who want to see that become reality. And so it is a lot of what can we do to make that work and what would make the most sense to make that work, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I know you had mentioned, Jacob, that your company currently has 3 facilities. There was kind of a story behind expanding that way. Do you want to highlight that?
It basically has to do with the speed at which we're growing, and then balancing out how much do you want to spend on a facility versus how much do you want to spend on new product development or those sorts of things. It's kind of balancing out the ideas of how to grow responsibly, I guess, is what it comes down to. So one of our facilities, our main facility, the one that I'm in right now and everything, that one we kind of expected would be the only facility that we would need for about 5 years. And we're not even 5 years into it yet. And we weren't able to transfer everything here. We still have a bunch of stuff kind of at the other facilities and everything. And we will probably outgrow this facility. It's looking like no later than end of next year sort of thing. So we're already trying to think through what does that mean for the next one. So on the one hand, I'm hoping that we can end up in a single location because there are some logistical issues with working out of multiple locations. They're all relatively close to each other, so it's not a huge deal. And especially where there is so much digital communication that's available nowadays, it makes it a lot easier. But I have some of my team that are in a different location. It'd be nice to be able to just, walk over to their desk in 5 minutes rather than walking over to their desk in 15 or 20 if I want to walk, sort of thing.
Yeah, I wonder how your teams would respond to this. Like, obviously, there's that. It would be nice for everybody to be in one place, but a lot of people like working in smaller facilities where it's a little bit more intimate. You're seeing the same people every day. Do you think that would be a challenge for your internal employees once you make that transition one day?
It definitely could. I didn't really think about it in that way, but the way that we have even kind of structured ourselves at our largest facility has been kind of by team. We've tried to set up in a way so that the functional teams are sitting together and working together. So I think that, whether it's all those people are in a specific physical location together, a building, an entire building together, or whether that's just kind of an area of a building or a section of a building, I think that we could maintain the same thing. But that's an interesting thing. That's like, I should talk to my team about that, about, how do we maintain the right culture, even if the facility, the physical space changes around us.
Yeah, I feel like it's something I've sold with other companies to people whom I'm trying to recruit for them, where I'm like, this is a larger company and they definitely have those resources, but because you're working with that smaller team on the day to day, you still get that intimate small team where it's collaborative and everybody knows each other and there's that really positive company culture. I'm sure it's something that will be able to address and strike that balance, difficult as it may be.
I think it comes down to kind of experience and then trends, really. Like, there are things that I have seen in other places that I have worked, or other people on the team have seen in other places they've worked, and they can kind of call out and say, hey, if we don't address this, I think that's going to become a long-term problem for us. And then there's also just the, like, what is happening now when we look at our nonconformances, when we look at complaints, when we look at things that are happening on our manufacturing lines, rejects that we're seeing or different things like that. A lot of times that's kind of telling us where our weak points are, and it's helping us kind of see what we should be doing next, basically. So it's some of interpreting that. I think that in order to kind of know what you want to deal with next, having really robust data collection systems is really valuable. I think that in the time that I've been here, there's been some things that we've done kind of based off of, hey, it feels like this isn't working the way that we want it to. Maybe we should try to address that. But it's a lot easier to get resources and to kind of push into what you need to fix if you can basically say, hey, here's a trend. Like, we can see this thing happen right now. And if we keep going this way, we can see exactly what the problem's going to be for us, rather than just being like, well, I feel like it's not going very well, or I feel like it's going to get worse or something like that.
Right. Is data analytics and collection something you've always been excited by? Is this something that surprised you in your current role?
Well, I think that I have always kind of enjoyed math and graphs and things like that. And I think that I like data because a lot of times it's what it is. It's pretty straightforward. Whereas other forms of communication can be a little bit more up for interpretation. And the reality is that data a lot of times can be interpreted as well and everything, but it feels a little bit more straightforward. So I think that most people who end up in quality at some point in time really like data quite a bit. Up, I just wanted to do something that I felt like would be able to, support a family, like pay well, basically, that sort of thing, and then help people. Like, that was kind of my criteria. And so when I came to trying to pick a career coming out of high school, basically, and just being like, well, I can do anything, or I don't know anything that I can do, that one just popped into my head. That one made sense. It's like, well, let's focus on that. Let's become a doctor. It's a pretty lucrative career, and it definitely helps people. So it seems like it fits my criteria. And then when I got to the university and I was talking to advisors there, specifically the pre-med advisor, then they were saying that there is no pre-med bachelor's degree, basically. So I needed to pick something. And they basically recommended, they're saying, a lot of people will pick biology or chemistry, thinking that will kind of give them a leg up in it. There are a lot of biology and chemistry type classes you need to take for pre-med anyway, but they were saying that medical schools tend to like diversity. And so they were saying, pick something you actually want to do and then just do these on the side as well, because if you are a little bit more unique, that might actually give you a leg up. So when I was looking through kind of options at school and everything, what I I ended up thinking of kind of engineering because I talked about that. I kind of enjoyed math. And so I felt like engineering would potentially be a good fit. And then when I was looking through the options of engineering that were available at my university, it was, I found one called biomedical engineering. And I was like, you know what? That one seems like it would make a lot of sense for what I'm going toward, basically. And it turns out that a lot of people in my cohort thought the same thing. There were a lot of people who were kind of in there for the sake of pre-med, basically. But I think that a lot of people, along with me, learned along the way more about what that actually meant and what you could do inside of engineering. And kind of the more that I learned about engineering and the role that I would be able to play in medical devices anyway, even without being a doctor and everything, the more that I realized, like, I think that's a better fit for me. I think I'd rather kind of be this background player in it who still, without the right tools, it still is very, very difficult to do what you need to do as a doctor. Even if you know exactly what you need to do, if you don't have the right tools to do it, it doesn't mean anything in the end. So I could still have a similar impact on kind of what I was hoping to have an impact on without not as much of the face-to-face, I guess. I think that I'm a little bit more introverted in that way and would prefer to be in the background.
I think that's a fantastic way to like build diversity in your experience and be able to see different angles in whatever role you end up in, be it quality or R&D. It sounds like you've really hit your stride with quality. Jacob, can you tell us how you approach hiring for key positions as the company continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, looking back at kind of how we've gotten to where we are and what's been really successful for us, I think the main thing that has helped us find like really, really great people has actually been current employees. It's recommendations. Like if we can find people who really understand what we need and know people who can fill those needs, that has been by far the thing that has helped us the most. Outside of that, though, because we can't always find someone that way, and especially as we've continued to grow, it's become harder and harder for us to do that, honestly. I think we're just kind of pulling everyone we know in, basically. And so now we're having to look at outside of that a little bit more. One of the key indicators for me for how successful someone is going to be, at least here, has been how much do they care about the company that they are working for, in addition to the work that they have. Because from my experience, someone who actually cares about the place that they're working is going to put some effort into maintaining that culture or growing that culture or building it in the right direction in the way that is going to help them continue to be successful, versus someone who is good, but is just there to do their job. And that's not necessarily problematic. It's just in a company that's growing significantly and the culture is bound to shift on, then having someone who's invested in what that culture becomes and everything has ended up being really, really valuable. I think it helps them want to be successful in a way that you don't necessarily see otherwise.
Absolutely. I could see how important it is to see the, what is the phrase? The forest for the trees, see the company as a whole as a way for you to progress not only your personal, professional career, but also just help make this whole all the better a place to work. And it shows the level of quality that Scientia brings to the average candidate that comes through, that your current employees are willing to bring referrals. Like they're excited to grow the company and to have people they know join up. I think that's fantastic. Has there been anything that's been challenging in building your team?
I think that in thinking about things that have been challenging, there's kind of this difference between the things that have been challenging for me specifically versus for the team. So I think about like something that I've actually felt was really successful for the team itself, but has been really challenging for me personally, has been kind of letting go of ownership, I guess, is really what it comes down to. What I've really tried to do with my team has been to give them that ownership, which a lot of the stuff that they're doing now are the things that I was doing just a couple of years ago and things like that. And everyone does things a little bit differently. And I think that we all kind of think that our way is the right way of doing things. So when you see someone doing it differently, then it's hard to just kind of let that go, especially where in my role, even though I may not own or do those things directly, I still own the ultimate responsibility for all of it. So that's been a thing that I think has been difficult for me personally. But I think that another challenge that we've seen as a team has been, as we continue to grow and as we continue to kind of have more and more things that we're working on, how to maintain a unity as a team and everything. And we even talked about kind of multiple facilities and how that plays into it a little bit of, I think that where I kind of have responsibilities and the need to be at each of the facilities on any given day and everything. Some of my other engineers don't necessarily have that. And so there's some of my engineers who I think are closer with their direct teammates than others because some of them sit together and then some of them sit in different buildings and have the need to interact more or less with each other. So it's been a little bit of a challenge for me to figure out how do I maintain that kind of feeling of unity and make sure that we are all operating on the same page as well. Because it's not that I just want them to, know each other and like each other, but also how do we make sure that we kind of operate the same way, that if you talk to anyone on my team, that you should get more or less the same response every time. So
That's super interesting. I imagine you'll have to do a lot of virtual meetings, like doing Teams meetings with people who are working at different facilities, or is it mostly email correspondence that you'll find yourself working with?
I think we end up spending quite a bit of time in Teams because that's a quick way to communicate and everything. When we do have our meetings, because our facilities are close enough to each other, then most of the time we still have the ability to kind of be together for the meetings at least. But it's not a thing where I can just kind of like pop up and walk over to everyone's desk or that everyone can do that necessarily. And we definitely have structured the way that we do things differently because of that as well. So we basically always will have a virtual invite on any meeting and make sure that we're set up to be able to do that in case someone is kind of running from meeting to meeting and can't necessarily take the time to go between the facilities just to get to one.
Process. Can you describe that a little bit and how it's shaped your hiring results?
I think one of the when I was thinking about kind of why this would be successful for us or why it would make such a big difference, I think one of the things I realized is that as much as I would like to think that I know it, I don't necessarily know exactly what my counterparts are needing from me all the time, but they do know that. And so as we're interviewing these candidates and I'm seeing, this is the perfect person for what I think that we need right now, then sometimes I get the feedback of, they might be really great from like the very, very specific quality tasks that you're thinking of, but the things where we need them to work with us, they may be less helpful on and everything. So it's not only making sure that we get that feedback, but also that I actually listen to it and and do something about it, basically, and everything.
And then there's also the point of the candidate who now sees that it's a collaborative environment from the very first interview, the first hour that they're spending in the facility. They're meeting different team leaders and understanding that this is a place where you're going to be working with others. I think that sets a great tone.
I think that I am the type of person who would way rather be too busy than have too little to do, basically. So this sort of environment is really incredible for me because I could put all of my time into it and I would still have things that I'm not getting done, basically. So I've really loved being able to just kind of put a lot into it. Something that has been really interesting with that specifically, though, and one of the reasons that I've really enjoyed working at Scientia is because even though most companies, especially small companies, will kind of take everything that you can give them and will still ask for more, basically. The first boss that I had here, if he ever saw me here outside of kind of my normal hours, would always ask me what I was doing here. And then he'd tell me to go home. um, and like there were some times that I would listen to that and I would, say, okay, yeah, I should probably just go. I don't need to get this done today. And there were some times where I needed to get that thing done that day, but to me, it set the correct tone of even though there is always stuff to be working on, we can always be busy. We can always be making improvements or different things like that. It's still important to make sure that you take care of yourself as well, that you maintain the right balance associated with that. And so I've seen that attitude in a lot of other people, and I definitely take it on myself as well. Of we kind of keep each other accountable. I think that a lot of people here are the sort of people that you would potentially define as workaholics. I think that if you have that attitude of just like I would way rather be too busy than not have enough, then it potentially leans you into that. But by working with a bunch of other people, see that as it can be a strength, but it can also end up being a weakness and can potentially burn you out really fast if you let it and everything. I think that working in that culture and environment has just been really enjoyable to me to work with a bunch of other people that I feel like are a lot like me, but we're also trying to make sure that we all look after each other.
Work-life balance is a tricky and prevalent conversation right now. It sounds like y'all do a really good job over there. Like you said, setting a tone as the employer that the expectation is that the employee will honor work-life balance and try and fight that burnout that can be so inevitable in almost any industry. But then also the balance of like an employee who, like we said from the beginning, has stock in the company, has wants it to succeed and wants to do what they have to make it succeed. It's a tough one to another tough balance to walk, but it sounds like y'all do it really well.
Right, at least.
You're killing it. Well, Jacob, I really appreciated getting to talk with you today. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Ooh.
Yeah, hit me.
Yeah. I was just thinking about hiring in general, and where that's a small portion of my job, it is a significant portion of yours. And so I'm really curious about your insights on a couple of things. One of the things I was thinking about was basically, you'd mentioned that your current company does hiring across a bunch of different industries and whatnot. How do you make that be successful? Because I think that I've a lot of, I guess, recruiters even who've reached out to me historically have been kind of in the med device space specifically, or a little bit more specialized and everything. So how do you kind of understand and make sure that you know how to work in any of the given industries that you end up working?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question, and we over at Snelling have over the last couple years played with that idea of niching into one specific industry and whether that would be helpful. It's kind of tough. I won't lie to you. I'll be pretty transparent, actually, that we have become jacks of all trades, master of a few, that kind of thing. And we find that, well, one way that I become like a pseudo expert in anything I'm working with is by asking candidates, like, what are the things that you think I should know that I'm not asking you? And things like that, kind of a easy question to get some more information out of people. I always go see my clients in person. I look to have a really strong understanding of what they want before I leave their facility, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of how we attack, like, working with different industries. Hiring is hiring, people are people. In every industry, there's going to be some patterns. And what we really pride ourselves on is our ability to vet folks, not only on the technical skills, which can be learned, I think, or which can be addressed through interview questions and things like that, but also soft skills and follow through and things like that. That's where we find we hit our stride. If candidates are or are not a fit, feedback is the name of the game. And I always tell people in my initial meetings with clients that for us to be successful, we need lots and lots of feedback. If somebody doesn't work for your company, please tell me, or I might end up sending someone else who has the same problem. So that is really the big differentiator between a good and a bad client for us as recruiters. I have yet to meet a person I didn't like, to be honest, in terms of culture. I think almost any company culture can be worked with, or there's somebody who will fit in. But feedback, communication, I mean, we want to be partners, not vendors as recruiters. That's one of our mottos over at Snelling, is like, we want to be a partner. We want to be in on these conversations so that we can really get dialed in on what a person wants and what a manager wants, and then find them that.
How do you go about understanding what your client actually needs?
I'd be remiss not to just continue spouting the importance of healthy communication. I prefer phone calls to emails. I prefer in-person meetings to phone calls. And I think the best way that I can, serve my clients is by acknowledging ignorance, by saying, I'm not a mind reader, and I'm not an expert in your field necessarily, not yet. I can be. Give me some time. But no, just communicating to clients constantly that I want to know, what's on their mind and that kind of thing. I think that's the biggest way. I apologize. I'm butchering what could have been a good answer, because what was your exact phrasing there? Like, how do you best communicate? Not best communicate. Could you say it again?
How do you understand?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just pestering all day, just calling and saying, getting very granular with things. I love that. I love being very granular. And then also reflecting what clients are telling me versus what the market is telling me on the other side. If I'm getting responses from candidates that say a client might be unreasonable or might be out of sync with what the market can provide, in terms of years of experience per pay range, things like that, then I'll communicate that kind of thing back to clients and be very vocal about what I'm hearing and whether I think what they want. And this is not the first thing that I go for. Like, it's not my main service as a recruiter, but I think it's part of it, is is telling clients when things might be unrealistic, or at least when that's my perception, so that I can better understand what they want from me.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of always think about when working with recruiters is it almost feels like there's a conflict of interest associated with it, basically, because I'm sure that you hear this all the time. There's this idea of your goal is to get someone in there because then that's how you get paid and everything. But I also expect that that's a pretty short-term strategy, because if you get someone in who's a poor fit, then that person's never going to ask you to do anything for them again and everything. So
Yeah, I think all those things coincide, and also a healthy passion for this work. My priority on a day-to-day basis, I'm not sitting here typing thinking about my paycheck, to be honest. I don't happen to be one of those folks. I'm thinking about how exciting it would be to get somebody in at a company who makes a difference and makes an impact, and how excited I'd be for someone on the candidate side to call me and say, I just love working at Scientia. This place is perfect. I can't wait to go back in tomorrow. And I love the other side, the client calling and saying, so and so is just a perfect fit. They're such a great member of the team. They're learning quickly. I mean, that's what I'm doing this for. The paycheck is great too. I don't mind it. I love keeping the lights on. But no, I'd like to thank everyone on our team here. We're a small team. We like working with each other, and we like working. We like doing this work, and it can be very satisfying, to be honest.
yeah, it's actually really interesting. I didn't think about it when I was kind of putting these questions together, but I'm realizing this is actually really helpful for me as just someone who sits on some of these panels sometimes and thinking about, what am I actually bringing to certain candidates? There are certain roles that I've sat in on where it's like, I really don't know. I personally don't know what the day-to-day looks like for this person, but I do end up interacting with this person. And so what are the things that I should be talking to the hiring manager about even and everything, like as just a part of that cross-functional group and whatnot. So I appreciate your kind of thoughts on this, because I'm realizing like, I can help utilize some of this for my own sake in my helping as we're hiring.
I do think that recruiters can get a really great finger on the pulse. We get to hear raw thoughts, sometimes too raw, on the candidate side, of what they're seeing, not only in the job market, but once candidates start working at a company. And it's like when your friend is telling you about a problem in their relationship, and you're like, have you told your partner this? Yeah, telling me, but have you told? And so that could be good. You can call me anytime, Jacob, if you need more insights on that side of things. I'm not trying to pretend to be an expert, but yeah, I love that this might have been beneficial to you in more ways than just getting some good clips and things like that. So, any other questions, Jacob? Okay. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I love talking with you. Do you want to plug any social medias or anything like that for you or for Scientia? No? You said you were an introvert, right? No, come on.
Yeah.
You gotta, we're going to
think-
get people spamming your inbox.
Yeah, I think this is already going to be plenty for me. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast. I'll go ahead and end our recording, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.